Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. Today, rock guitar on keyboards. This should be a fun one. If you've ever wanted to play rock guitar on your keyboards and make it sound authentic, this may help you. I've got 6 tips, or 6 major tips, and then some minor tips within those categories. The first tip, which is not in this list, is don't use a weighted keyboard like me. Use an unweighted keyboard because you're going to need to have your fingers move really fast. All right, I'm going to isolate my audio. Let's have some fun. Number 1, you've got to have a great sound. And I'm using the Searing lead on the XV88, so that will also be on the 3080 and the 5080. All right. So there's no substitute for a good sound, okay? So get yourself a good sound. Number 2, set it up for performance. I'm lucky in that this keyboard here will allow me to set up a programmable pitch bend. What I mean by that is not this, that you can switch what the range of the pitch bend. Just about every keyboard will do that. What this keyboard will allow me to do is to set it up differently going up than down. So going up, I have it set for a whole step. Going down, I have it set for an octave, so I can dive bomb. And the whole thing about making keyboards sound like real guitar is having the same techniques as a real guitar player, or at least mimicking those techniques. And so in order to dive bomb, we're going to need that big range. All right. So the next thing is pitch bend. This is in item number 2, pitch bend. Guitar players pitch bend. There's at least 3 ways that I can think of that they do it. One is to just bend the neck of the guitar. Bending it forward kind of can give you a dive bomb. Pulling it back can raise the pitch. That's not good for a guitar, but I had a friend that had a guitar once, and that's the way he used to do it because he couldn't afford a guitar with a whammy bar. The other way to do it is to just move the string with your finger. Move it upward or pull it downward on the fret, so you're adding tension to the string and making the string tighter, and that will raise the pitch. The other thing you can do is use the whammy bar. Pulling it up raises the pitch, pushing it towards the body lowers the pitch, and that's what they usually use for dive bombing. Now, we need to duplicate those techniques here. So pitch bending up is easy. We can just use our pitch bend. Okay, so that works for us. The other thing we want to do, and I already talked about dive bombing, let's just give that a try. All right, and now the thing about a lot of these techniques is we want to get off of that particular key before the effect wears out. So when I'm dive bombing here, I don't stay on the key as I'm going down, and you're hearing the feedback. I'm taking my finger off the key before I've finished all the bending. That way it sounds more natural, like a guitar player would do it. Okay. The other thing we can do is by rapidly moving the bender, we can create what might be done with a whammy bar. When I play guitar, and I have a Strat over there, when I play it, usually I'll hook my pinky, or for us keyboard players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my 5th finger or my 4th finger, and sometimes both, around the whammy bar, and as I'm playing, I'll just pull it or shake it for performances. And we can do the same here with the pitch bend. So. players do that a lot, especially on their leads. Okay, the next thing is modulation. We can get mod just by, for me, pushing this pitch bend joystick forward. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Guitar players do that by vibrating their finger or moving their finger rapidly on the string, creating vibrato. So we want to be able to do that. Now this is a really cool sound that we've got here, this Searing lead. If you listen to the sound, I'll just hold down a key. You'll hear that it has the plain distorted tone, and then it crossfades into feedback. We want to take advantage of that, but we don't want it to be static when it goes into the into the feedback. That's when we need to add a little bit of vibrato to it. So I'm going to push the mod stick forward. So let's set it up a little bit. Okay, that's going to add to the realism. All right. Also for modulation, we can use the pitch bend rapidly, kind of like a whammy bar again, and that's really adding some mod. There's a cool movie that I really like called Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg. And there's a scene where he's talking to the guitar player of his band. And he's saying, "You're not nailing the squeal." And the guy plays it and he goes, "That's a ping, not a squeal." And it kind of goes. He goes, "That's a ping, not a squeal." And so then he says, "More raunchy." So then the guy goes. And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I want." He goes, "Thank you." So we can get that raunchy sound. Using the pitch bend lever here. And I prefer a joystick for playing guitar lead, but I prefer wheels when I'm playing synth lead. There's benefits to each one, though I can do it with both, and you probably can too. All right, portamento effects. Let's talk about effects. Without any effects on this sound, it sounds like nothing. Little reverb helps. Chorus, but in this particular case, they mean a time delay effect, a time-based effect, and so it's delayed. We already talked about. And then we have multi-effect. One thing that guitar players use effects for is just for sweetening the sound, making it sound bigger with chorus or prettier, or adding reverb to put it in a space. But the other thing they do it for is performance-based. I can bend a note up and then bend it down. But a lot of times when guitar players play, they'll take their finger off the note and let the delay kick in. When that delay kicks in, and I'm using a multi-tap delay, you can really hear that. And that really works well for adding to the illusion that it's real rock guitar. All right, next up, portamento. My advice on portamento is not to use it for guitar. It's a smooth transition from one note to the next. And while we are doing that when we're bending notes, portamento across a long range sounds a little bit like Kill Bill, but it's very unnatural. You can't do that really on guitar. I suppose with the whammy bar you might be able to do it, but what works better for guitar is glissando, because we're moving across discrete pitches. Guitar is doing the same thing when a guitarist is sliding their finger up the fretboard or down the fretboard. They're moving in half pitches at a time, or semitones. And that's the way we want to add realism to it. So I personally just leave portamento off. It's great for synth music. It's not good for guitar. But if you like it, you should use it. Next up, hammering on and pulling off. Okay. Probably famously done by Eddie Van Halen. I don't think he was necessarily the first from what I've seen online, but he would like to play and then just go in and he's tapping the strings and at the same time hooking his finger just slightly and pulling off. So you're getting both the sound of the hammer of the finger going on, the hammer of the finger going on the string, and also then pulling it off, a kind of a quick pluck. We can do that. We can, well, approximate it. We can't do it perfectly. And we can do it with arpeggios. Now, I've got a disadvantage here because this is a weighted keyboard, but you can go up. You can go down. Okay. You can also use 4 notes, and I like to do this occasionally, and I'm just going to turn this off for a moment. And I'm going to go up and come back. And that's going to give me 6 notes. So I'm still giving it a triplet feel. A lot easier on a non-weighted keyboard. But that's the way you can approximate hammer-ons and pull-offs. All right, item number 3, and this is really important. For everything except for what I just played there, I've had the solo mode on. That makes the instrument monophonic. We want to take that off because guitar players, when they're playing lead, they're hitting intervals. They're doing double stops, triple stops, playing whole chords, and we need that. It adds to the sound. It gives us interplay between notes, which adds grind to it. So now, with it on, sounds pretty good. But when I take it off, now I can play some double stops. Makes it a lot more believable that it's a real guitar player. Next up, what intervals should you play? Okay, well that's up to you. Any interval that works with your song. Generally, I find myself playing major and minor thirds depending on what key I'm in and what chord is being played. Also perfect fourths, perfect fifths. But if we quickly go down, here's octaves. 7, flat 7, 6. That's got a pretty good grind to it. Flat 6, perfect fifth, tritone. Guitar players love tritones. Well, probably because of Lydian. Maybe. Perfect fourth. Major third. Minor third. Now, major seconds and minor seconds, I don't use them a lot. When I do use them, they're passing tones. I don't hang out there very long because they sound bizarre maybe. So let's listen. So a major second, minor second. No reason why you can't throw them in. And we're going to talk about something related to that in just a minute. Next up, number 4, scales. What scales should you be playing? Well, once again, that's up to you. Whatever fits your song, wherever you want to go with that song, with the melody and how you want to rip. But guitar players tend to use pentatonics a lot, 5-note scales rather than our 7-note scales. I guess technically that's the 7th note. So the nice thing about pentatonics, with it only being 5 notes per scale, they can just rip through the scales, playing every note of that scale pentatonically. For those that aren't familiar with pentatonics, for the major scale, and that's the C major scale, we're going to remove the 4 and the 7. It's going to sound like this. The cool thing about this is if you play this down low, it's essentially the bass line to My Girl, or at least the start. If I play it with the beat of My Girl, they'll definitely take down the video. But I can play major pentatonic, and they shouldn't be able to do anything about that. As far as minor pentatonic is concerned, there's no 2, there's no flat 6. So there's the whole scale. Now we're going to take out the 2 and the flat 6. Now, it's up to you what you want to use. I find that I modify these a little bit, and you can do that too. I tend to throw in the flat 6. But I throw it in as a passing tone mostly, and then I'm hitting like I'm hitting other intervals. Modes. You can use modes too. Guitar players love modes. Every guitar player I ever met loved Lydian, but all the church modes are fair play, or church modes, jazz modes if you want to call them that. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. All fair game if that's where your song is. In jazz, those modes become probably more important. But guitar players, famous guitar players that really play ripping guitar, they're using this stuff all the time. When I was taking guitar, my guitar player worked very hard to teach me modes, and I did my best. But I remember one day he was teaching me soloing over non-diatonic keys, and there you get some of the more exotic modes like Phrygian major and Lydian flat 7, and those modes become more useful when you're playing lead. So, but it's up to you, and if any of this mode stuff is going over your head a little bit, don't worry about it. It's over my head too, but it's good stuff to take a look at. Item number 5, think like a guitarist. You can watch videos online. Watching famous people play is not a bad idea, and seeing what they're doing. But the thing about guitar, especially rock guitar, is it's very riffy. They don't usually play nice, clean melodies. I mean, sometimes, but it's more riffy. So stuff like this. You're not really going to hear that, but you're going to hear, you know. You're going to hear that kind of stuff. Stuff that's riff, repeating patterns. That says a lot about what rock guitar is. And you know, when I was learning to play guitar, I bought all these DVDs that teach you all these like famous riffs. And a lot of them are based on other styles like blues, or they're using modes. Next up, atonality. You have to embrace that. Sometimes as keyboard players, we like things to sound pretty. And one thing growing up in the 80s, and my friends that were guitar players, they had their favorites like Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen and Satriani and Santana and all those different people. And those people would do something on a cut, and they want to try to imitate it. How are they making that sound? It wouldn't just be chorus or reverb or delay. It would be some kind of playing technique where they're taking the pick and they're sliding it down the strings. So that atonality of growls and roars and nailing the squeal, you have to embrace that, because that adds the realism into the rock guitar when you're playing it on keyboards. Okay, next within that category, thinking like a guitarist, is they don't play straight time all the time. They're mixing up straight time and triplet time and making it riffy. You're kind of getting that. I could play a very fast riff, but if I'm playing it all in straight time, it's just gonna sound boring. So triplet time is a great way to get in there and mix it up a little bit, I think. Last but not least, number 6, putting it all together. It takes practice. I've been doing it a while and it sounds a little probably boring to you, just sterile like this, not being played in context with a whole bunch of music and everything. But it can really sound good if you take time, or if you're interested in taking the time to learn to bend well and just improve your playing technique, just like a guitar player would have to improve their technique to play it on guitar. One thing that I like to do, and I used to do this a lot when I was learning to play guitar on keyboards and also play really good synth lead. And back in the 80s, heaven help us, there was a lot of saxophone on pop music. It was a thing. And so I had to play a lot of sax on keyboards. And one of the things I would do is, and I still do it every once in a while, is just set up a quick sequence on your DAW and then jam with it. Another thing you can do, and it's probably even better, and I did this when I was learning guitar, is download general MIDI sequences of famous songs, the songs that you like that have guitar on them. And I played a ton of time, or I spent a lot of time playing the Santana lead part on Europa, which is an instrumental by Santana. So that was a really cool one to download and play against. And then synth lead too. So download some of those. You can just dump them or import them into your DAW, mute the guitar channel, and you can take over on lead guitar on keyboards. I think that would be a great way to go. Putting it all together and remembering all these different techniques is a matter of repetition and just playing with it. I hope this was helpful to you. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do this, and I know some of these things aren't particularly interesting to people, but I just love playing lead guitar on keyboards, and I love playing it against just music, a quick progression that I'll set up on a DAW, just to have some fun. You can jam all by yourself. You don't need a whole band. Take care. I'll be back in another video soon. Thanks for watching.